They are here. You need to be very careful. Keep your eyes open and look at the people close to you. Really, look at them. Do they seem slightly taller than before? If so, stay away from them. Don't be too obvious, for if they realize that you know, you will be in grave danger. If they try to contact you in any way, politely reject them. If they are near you, make an excuse and go the hell away. If they offer to take you somewhere, don't go. I repeat, do not go anywhere with them. I can't tell you how it all started, or why they're doing this, or what exactly "they" means. But I can tell you one thing, that is, my story and all I know. I've been living in a flat with my girlfriend Sarah for almost a year, and we have been saving up for a while to move to a better place that is closer to where I work. So my life has been pretty dull for a while. Kiss her goodbye and tell her how lucky she is to have a work-from-home job. Get to the train and sit for 30 minutes, with my coworker Tim if I am lucky. Edit tomorrow's news for the paper, wait until night and edit it again, in case there are breaking news that happened during that time. I love my work. It is entertaining to do, and the time left until night is mostly spent with my coworkers, goofing around. Actually, I think the only people around that hate their jobs are Yusuf and Alice, who work the night shift together, and they hate each other. Things started to get horrible around the time I got a call from a friend in the middle of the night. This friend of mine works for NASA. Well, not officially NASA, but somewhat of an Army-NASA hybrid owned by a highly connected and powerful person. It is quite hard to rightfully explain, so just go along with what I've just said and pretend it makes sense. This is not the important part of my story anyway. This friend of mine wouldn't want his name given, so let's call him Pete. "Dude," he said, "I think you should know." His voice was fragile, and he was clearly apprehensive. "Pete, what is going on? It is very late." I looked at my watch to make sure my statement was correct. Then I looked at my girlfriend, who was mysteriously asleep despite the phone's obnoxiously loud ringtone. I know. His words brought me back to the conversation. "But listen, have you noticed anything absurd?" His choice of words were interesting. "Absurd? What do you mean?" "Like, anyone around you that feels somewhat different? Taller, maybe?" "Taller?" "Yes, taller. Think thoroughly." "No, I don't think so." But I hadn't given it much thought at the moment, because my mind was busy trying to understand my dear friend, who was talking what seemed like utter nonsense. "Why are you asking this?" "We have been reading highly consistent anomalies and..." He fell silent for a moment. "Pete? I can't tell you much. Just trust me and be very careful. If you see someone that is taller than he or she normally is, even just by a little, be careful. They may do something to you. Or maybe even turn you. I'm not sure how they act. You hear me?" Listen, act normal if you see one of them. Then get the hell away when you get the chance." "Pete, is everything..." "Tell me you got it." "Yes, I think," I said, although I was confused. "But Pete, what is..." But he hung up before I could finish my sentence. As I was standing near the desk where I put my phone, trying to make sense of the conversation I had with the reasonable and close friend of mine, who was mumbling nonsense and was very distant, I heard Sarah call my name. "Andrew?" "Yes," I said, turning to face her. She was out of the bed and she looked almost as dozy as I was. "Who was it on the phone?" "It was Pete. He was talking weird and saying..." But I stopped for a moment to observe Sarah, to really look at her. She seemed quite normal. Nothing was out of the ordinary with her, except for the look on her face that was filled with confusion. "Andy?" "Oh, it's nothing really. He was a little nervous about something is all. Probably work-related. Nothing to worry about." I wish I hadn't stupidly lied to her there. Maybe things would have been different. "I hope he is okay," she said as she went back to bed. "It is not normal to call at this hour." Well, way back in high school, I knew he'd go mad one day, I said jokingly as I lay back down. She giggled a little. Yeah, he has that mad professor look on him. I laughed softly, then before I knew, I was asleep. The next morning was a lucky one for me, because I was on the same train as Tim. I waved happily and sat right next to him. It is good to have empty trains. Well, who do we got here? Glad you decided not to be late. I chuckled. I believe you are late with me this time. It is not often I see the sight of you here. Well, if you love me that much, then why aren't we setting a time or something? I'm only a stop away from you. Yes, we really should, I said, knowing we probably never would. Our talk was pretty normal, and the impact of my chat with Pete vanished as the day had come, so I wasn't really careful. It was Tim who noticed something was off. Psst, he whispered. Where's the old lady's cat? I looked at the old lady, who almost always took the same train with us in the mornings. She was interesting to us because she always carried her gray cat with her and brushed the cat's fur. This time, however, there was no cat to brush. Weird, I whispered. Then I noticed another detail. She seemed taller. She was sitting in her typical slouching posture, so it would have been hard to see, but for some reason, maybe because I was looking for it, I saw her to be different, taller, and off, in a way. I don't know, it's hard to explain. She felt wrong. Tim, tell me, doesn't she look taller? Tim was silent for a second, then he nodded and said, Yeah, maybe the absence of the cat made her that way. I dismissively said, Yes, I think so too. But for the entire duration of the ride, I couldn't take my mind off her. Arriving at the workplace, I observed everyone to make sure. None of them felt the way the lady did. Neither did any of them look taller. Except Helga. She scared the life out of me the moment she came out of her office. Then I noticed it was the heels and I sighed with relief. Then I figured I was unnecessarily panicking over what Pete said, and was finding evidence where there wasn't any. I decided to focus on my work instead. After the short period of editing was over, a long period of goofing around started. This time, Berkeley brought his origami set and taught us how to make some of the more iconic things. Then everyone started their own little project. I made a beautiful rose for Sarah, Tim made a set of ninja stars and threw them around. Berkeley made a cube that turned into a flower when blown. It was a happy time. I honestly don't know why I'm telling you this, despite all the crazy that followed after and the little time I most certainly have to write this. I decided to tell you about the part we made origami. Maybe I wanted to remember this, the last good part of this story. Or maybe I am afraid to write. But you have to know. You have to. Then came the night. As the sun was setting, Tim and I were the only ones left waiting for Yusuf and Alice to come, so that they'd take our places as the breaking news writer and editors. They came, but they weren't right. Both of them felt wrong, and they were taller than before. I looked at them with shock as they entered the room we were in. Are you all right? Yusuf asked. Everything was wrong with him. His length was wrong. His words and his stance and his eyes felt wrong. Every cell in my body wanted to rush out of the room, screaming and crying like a baby. I was trembling. It's just weird, I said. Then without pausing, I added, to see you two enter together. Yusuf and Alice laughed at the same time. God, those laughs. I quickly announced, anyway, I think we should get going. Since you two came, there is no reason for us to waste time here any longer. Then I started anxiously rushing towards the exit while trying to seem calm to them, also bringing my unsuspecting friend Tim along. Actually, Alice said, making me freeze with her words, we need help with one of the earlier entries. Can you two help us? Sure, Tim jumped, as the friendly and helpful idiot he's always been. Come on, Andrew, what's the rush? I didn't know what to say. I really need to get out of here. Tim looked at me with wondering eyes. I don't know what Yusuf and Alice's reactions were like because I was too afraid to look at them. Okay, Tim said. It is your life. Well, I'll help Alice out, then I'll meet you outside. How's that sound? Sure, I mumbled, and I gave a slight nod with a smile and got out as quickly as I could. It was drizzling, and the thunder showed that it'd get worse. As the small droplets of rain touched me, I relaxed a little. It was probably nothing, and I've been making it out to be a bigger deal than it was. I must have let Pete get the better of me. It must have been just a prank, nothing more. And I got delusional and started seeing things. Everything was okay. Tim would get out in a matter of seconds, and we'd get to the train, and the day would end with me giving Sarah a big hug. Okay, Andy, let's go, I heard the voice of Tim. I looked at him with a smile, left from me imagining how Sarah would act when I gave her the rose I made. Then my smile froze on my face when I saw that Tim was different. He was no longer, and for some reason I can't explain, he no longer resembled Tim. He looked like him, but he was... They may do something to you, or maybe even turn you, I remembered Pete say. He was turned. Hey, he, or it, said, what are you smiling about? Listen, act normal if you see one of them, then get the hell away when you get the chance, Pete also said. It is the rose, I claimed. I wonder how Sarah would react. Don't worry, the imposter said, smiling. She will love it. God, that awful smile. Yes, you are right. Let's go, I said as my sanity was hanging by a thread. In the train, I tried to notice familiar faces and to see if they were off as well, to make sure that it was not a big misunderstanding, to make it so that I was somehow wrong about all this, someone to prove me wrong, anything. Andrew, said the imposter. I looked at him. He looked wrong, very wrong. Tell me, what was that thing about with Alice and Yusuf? His eyes were searching for something, calculating. It disturbed me on a core level. It is nothing, I said. Being stuck in the same place for a whole day has its effects is all. Yeah, right, it said, mimicking my friend. I understand the boredom. I laughed dismissively. What was that about the lady, though? Being taller and stuff? His words almost made me give my cover. I made eye contact again, somewhat unwillingly. Oh, God. I thought it was onto me. I don't know, honestly. I guess it was the cat, as you said. The cat completes her. Yes, it does. Throughout the way, we didn't talk much. Sometimes I felt the imposter's gaze on me, but I tried my best not to panic. Spent time pretending to look at my phone or look outside, but mostly I was secretly looking at the imposter through his reflection on the glass, ready to flee if he made a move on me. "Wanna come to my apartment tonight?" it asked, as the train was minutes away from my stop. "We can do that beer night we were wanting to do for a very long time." "No," I said, mumbling a few words until I finally found my answer. "You know, it is raining, and I'm sure it is going to get worse, and plus I made a promise to Sarah. So another time, maybe?" "Sure," the imposter said calmly, then looked at me for a few seconds, planning something. I quickly looked around and saw that there were no other people in sight, except for us. And he knew that as well. "Actually, sure. Yeah, surely, why the heck not?" "What?" it said, not prepared for my answer. "Yes, let's do it. Screw it, I can get wet. You know, I love rain. I do love rain so much. And yeah, we were meaning to hang out for... how long was it? Can you remember?" "I'm not sure," it said. Its looks were more curious now, almost unsure. Great, I thought to myself. The next stop was my stop. Yeah, Sarah can wait, right? We needed this bro time together as partners in crime, in job and crime, and in train. By the way, what time do you think it is best for us in the morning to get to the station and just get in the train, like 8? Okay. Of course, 8 for me is probably 750 for you, so should we make it 8 to... The train stopped. Are you okay? The creature asked. You are not acting like yourself at all. I can see the irony behind this only right now, as I'm typing. Yeah, sure, it is just sometimes when I get a little... Before the imposter realized what I was doing, I rushed out of the train and the doors closed just as I got out. When I looked back to see the train, I saw it, looking at me, using Tim's face. But nothing about it resembled Tim. It was just the skin. What's looking at me was something else. Something horrible. Sarah. I needed to take her and get as far away as possible. On the way home, I called Pete once. I couldn't reach his phone, and I called Sarah. The phone rang, but no one answered. I was more worried than before. I started running home. In front of the apartment, I involuntarily sat down and started panting. After a minute of resting, without giving myself the time to critique my condition, I climbed the stairs and went to my flat. The door was closed. It relieved me for some reason. Instead of ringing, I found my keys in my pocket and I opened the door. Sarah was inside. I could see her shape in the dark, lying on the couch. Oh God, Sarah, it is so great to see you. Look, there is something I need to tell you. What's going on? She asked as she was slowly getting up. I started searching for the switch with my hands. Look, something is happening. I don't know how or what, but Pete was right. I think people are being... Unfortunately, I found the light switch and turned on the lights. It, was now standing erect, just like how Sarah would stand. It had the posture of Sarah. It looked at me how Sarah would. It looked just like Sarah as well, except it was slightly taller. Eyes, stance, everything wrong, in a way I can't even comprehend. God, I thought. Sarah, the person that I love more than anything in the world, was turned. What standing only meters away from me was a vile imposter, pretending. I really wanted to cry and hug Sarah until it was all over, but what stood ahead of me wasn't her. I panicked, started trembling. My knees were weak now. I put all my weight on the table right next to me so that I wouldn't fall. Honey? The creature said, rushing at me. Are you okay? What's wrong? You, I said, shaking. Not her. Stay the hell away. It backed away a little. What's wrong? I pulled myself back up. Where the hell is she? What have you done to my Sarah, huh? Give her back, you piece of crap. The next thoughts I had were, I should not have said that. The creature stopped just for a second, then opened its mouth as if it was going to say something. But then it kept on opening, and opening. If I had any kind of doubt that it was somehow still Sarah I was talking to, it disappeared right at that moment, when it spawned what I can describe as 3 big tentacles out of its mouth and rushed at me. My instincts saved me. Before I knew, the creature was on the ground, trying to get up, and I was holding a bloodied opal stone that we had for decorations in my hands. The blood on the stone was greenish, so was the blood oozing out of the creature's wound on its head. It was still on the ground, and I raised the stone angrily to hit it again. Then, while looking at the imposter I despised with all my heart, I saw something. Something as it was lying on the floor, defenseless, looked like Sarah. A feeling that she was still in there, somewhere. Maybe. That is when the creature suddenly opened its eyes and rushed at me again. I backed down and fell on the floor. The imposter took this opportunity to jump on me, and the things in its mouth did their best to touch me. The only thing standing between those things and my face were my hands, doing their very best to push the creature away. After a while of struggling, as I was losing my strength, one of my kicks found their way to a weak side of the imposter, and it lost its balance. I used this advantage to kick the creature off of me. and away from the short hall in which the events took place. I knew I couldn't best it, not for long, so I got up before it did and ran out the door and shut the door on it. The keys. They were on the door still. I locked the door from the outside and I started hearing disgusting shrieks coming from inside, along with hard bangs on the door. Wait, I thought to myself, couldn't it open the doors? I decided to rush down the stairs before the creature gave me the answer. Well, after that, I just got here, the closet room of my apartment, and locked myself inside. I think it got out and is searching for me. I don't know what I am to do next. I want to go out, but I hear screams and shrieks just like hers coming from outside the apartment. I'm afraid to come out or look out the window, only to see something that is not human looking back at me. So, if you are hearing this, be very careful. If someone you know is slightly taller than normal and feels wrong in a way, stay away from them. They may turn you too. Okay, I'm finally in a position to write what followed after. Sorry for not being able to respond for a day. It's just that I've been a little busy almost dying. Well, let me start from where I left off. Yes, the helicopters. It was about an hour after I posted when I started hearing helicopters. Just before I heard the helicopters, I got the courage to look out the window and see what the hell was going on. At first, I saw silence. The street looked horribly empty, and so did the dark, lightless and lifeless apartments. But when I looked a little more carefully, I saw the panic hiding within. There was smoke visible in different areas. Distant shrieks and screams occasionally broke the silence, however only by a little. The unexpected storm wreaking havoc amidst the city was exceptionally good at silencing the horrors happening. But when the dozens of helicopters came with strong searching lights flying over the city, I got confident enough to come out of hiding and get to the streets so that one would see me and get me out of there. To where? Was anywhere safe? If so, for how long would that place stay safe? Were they actually survivor-friendly helicopters? Those are the kinds of questions that I did not have the time nor the mindset to think about. As I unlocked the door and slowly opened it, I expected to see Sarah with tentacles coming out of her mouth, ready to turn me. But to my surprise, the hallway was empty. However, there were footsteps coming from the upper floor, so I decided not to stay there any longer and go out into the open. I walked silently through the hallway and opened the outside door of the apartment. The street was empty, still, but I heard men speaking with strong voices somewhere on the right, maybe a few streets away. This felt like the greatest opportunity to find people who could actually listen to me, and maybe we could fight our way through this mess, which was suggested by one of you. So I followed the voices. On the next street was a long man in a suit, standing still and watching me. He was wearing a top hat that clearly went out of fashion centuries ago, yet it was not the weirdest part about him. He was wearing sunglasses, even though the sun had set hours ago. He seemed careless of the rain pouring over him as well. He was only watching me. Damn, I thought to myself. He must be one of them. First, I tried to keep my pace to not alert him. Then, as he kept watching me, I grew more and more restless. Then, as I was passing by him, I lost control and started bolting away from him. The rush of adrenaline kept me going for a while, and I probably would have kept going further if it wasn't for the sudden brightness blinding me. "Hold it right there," shouted a man that I could not see. "Don't move." "What?" "Shut the hell up and stand still." I did as I was ordered. When the brightness left my eyes, I fully opened them, and I saw that there were men wearing black protective suits. They were holding guns with flashlights attached, and most were aiming their guns at me. The one closest to me took out a weird device and started to walk slowly towards me. "What's that thing?" I asked, fearing the answer more every passing second as he came closer to me. Then I felt the most gruesome pain I have ever felt pass through my body. I could sense him aim his gun at me, unsure of what to do next. When my senses came back, there was a tall, well-built guy right next to him, shouting at him. "Well, you didn't see 3 big tentacles coming out of his mouth, did ya? Obey the protocol, or we'll be screwed by the end of tonight. Hear me?" "Sorry, sir." The guy had a weird accent, something in between Russian and German. "We are truly sorry for what happened, mister," he said. His words sounded kind, and he smiled reassuringly. He then kindly put his hand on my back, saying, "Follow me. I'll explain." He led me to a big van standing in the middle of the street. "I'm sorry, but the details are a little fuzzy. I was still recovering from the pain that thing gave me, so I don't exactly remember the details of what we talked about, but I remember sitting on that van, sipping the tea he gave me, and repeating what I'd been through. I think he laughed when I talked about the man I saw. Your reaction to the device was a little unexpected," he said in a calm manner, after I was done telling him about what I'd witnessed, "and I believe you show the required symptoms." My consciousness was getting back to its normal state. "Symptoms?" "Let me explain. As you've witnessed, there's an infestation of sorts. We, however, were prepared for this, and it's our job to take care of it." "I'm sorry. Who are you again?" "My name's not important. Call me Commander if you wanna. What's important is you. I've got to tell you something." I noticed then that there was a logo on his chest. It belonged to the company Pete worked for. "This infestation's a nasty one, really hard to deal with, except it's got a weakness. One major weakness that we can use to our advantage, and we have to if we're to save anyone, infected or not." I looked at his face. He had a long, bridged nose and dark blue eyes. The way he looked at me made me certain that he was going to ask me something. Something hard to ask. "You've been infected. Don't be afraid, it's nothing your immune system can't fight. So, you'll be okay if you choose to reject what I'm about to say and go on your way." The words "infected" had a shocking effect on me. How did it happen? I don't remember. "They can," he said, interrupting me, "infect others simply by wounding. And you, mister..." He paused, took out a tissue from his pocket, and touched it on my cheek, then showed me the tissue. It had a line of blood on it. He continued, "Have been infected with the bacteria." I remember the imposter Sarah attacking me with its tentacles, though I felt a little skeptic. "So you're telling me that a bacteria causes tentacles to come out of people's mouths? An interconnected hive of bacterial cells that are greatly able to differentiate and reproduce in varying environments. But yes, they're bacteria. So what will happen to those inside of me?" "As I said, if left alone, your immune system will handle it. You'll get a little feverish, then they'll die. Unless you let us weaken you." "What?" I said with horror and confusion. "Why the hell would you do that?" "This is what I've been trying to get to. Listen to me. This hive has a queen. If the queen dies, the hive dies with it. To locate the queen, however, we need someone whose immune system can identify the bacteria, and who has enough amount of bacterial infestation in the parietal lobe and occipital lobe so that..." He saw that I wasn't following. "The reason you haven't turned into one of them is that you are lucky to have a 1 in a million immune system that somehow identified an alien bacteria." He coughed briefly. "After you get infected, though, you will start seeing something. I'm not sure what, but something that isn't your normal range of vision. Something you will see without seeing. It's the queen. Tell us where you feel it, how far it is. We will kill it, and this will end. Any questions?" "So you want me to let myself turn into one of them and tell you where the queen is?" "No, you won't turn into one of them. There's a syringe here. It's got antibiotics specifically made for this. When injected, it'll kill the bacteria. After you tell us the location, before you get worse, we'll inject it." "What happens to those that have already turned?" "The hive will die with its queen. Infestation will kill itself. They'll be mostly unharmed, except They will puke blood for a while. I thought of Sarah and others who had been infected. At that moment, it seemed like the only way to end it. The look on the commander's face indicated that as well. I will do it. The weakening part, where they injected me with a yellow liquid that was supposed to weaken my immune system, was not that rough. After feeling crappy, with intense pain behind my eyes and my stomach for minutes, however, I felt it. It is hard to explain, but let me try what I'd felt. At first, I felt my body burning. A small burn, though I felt it in my veins and in my head, but especially in my throat. Then my throat started itching, and I coughed. What came out was a red and green blood. Then itching got worse. It reminded me of the time where I ate a considerable amount of chocolate and fell asleep, and woke up to many, many ants inside of my mouth, walking and biting. But this was a lot worse than that, as a feeling. So I coughed. More green and less red blood came out. The change was scary. "Feel anything yet?" the commander asked. He was nervous as well. I shook my head to the left and right. I wasn't feeling anything related to another location. Or maybe I was feeling it and just wasn't aware of it. That scared me, so I tried to focus. Yet the itch proved it impossible. But minutes later, something happened. I started hearing, in a way I've never heard before. I heard myself and others with me. The voice was inside my head like thoughts, but not exactly thoughts, like commands in the shape of thoughts. I don't know. Then I started seeing the others, formed just like me, looking at me and each other just like I was looking at them. We were aware of each other, we saw each other, but not with our eyes. Then I saw what they were talking about. One big monster inside of a body. It was the one calling to us and commanding us. "Where is it?" the commander asked. His soldiers were behind him, looking at me with interest. Except for the one I was linked to. Communicating got impossible for a moment. I was blind and deaf and unable to do anything. Then I could see the ones I was linked to even more clearly. Others were visible as well, and they were meant to be linked. I came back to my senses again. "This way." I pointed at the location I felt the queen, about a mile away. Commander was fast to order. "Let's go. You sit next to me and tell me where exactly it is. I'll make sure you get the injection as soon as we know. Chuck, Bob, Mike, come with us in the back of the van. Others, get to the other van and follow us." I wanted to tell the commander of the other person I was linked to, but I couldn't. My brain didn't allow. The ride was horrible. I felt my connection grow stronger and my body less and less able to fight it. At times I felt like linking the commander as well, but my body fought back. Other times I tried to tell him what was happening back there, but my link blocked me from doing so. My hearing and sight changed twice, leaving only the enemy in the linked, then changed back to the blurry state I was in quickly, before I turned the commander. Eventually, we were in the same street as the queen. "Where is it?" the commander asked again. The infection fought against it, but I managed to lift my hand to the place the queen was at. Top, I answered barely. My head was burning and itching now. "Top floor?" I nodded. He kept driving until we got to the front of the building. By the time we arrived, however, the back of the van was fully infected. As the commander stopped the car, the linked got out. One of them was going to turn the commander, yet I couldn't say anything. The commander put his hand on my shoulder gently and said, "You did good. Wait a little. Mike's got the injection." I didn't respond. He got out, and as one of the linked was going to link him with us, the other van arrived, and it changed its mind. The commander walked next to one of the linked and said, "Mike, give him the injection. Make sure that he's okay and then come with us. We're going to take care of this." Mike, who was now taller than he was before, responded as he would, then took the injection. The others were already getting inside of the 3-story building when the door opened. I sensed that he tried harming me, but he was unable. He tried again and he couldn't. Our link wasn't allowing it. I first heard gunshots. Then some linked died. Then some joined us and gunshots stopped. Nobody around was there to suspect anything, because the whole block was linked. My hearing and sight changed again, for longer this time. I felt all the others linked thoroughly. Commander and his other men were with us now. They were a part of us. Then my body fought back and I felt sick again. Sicker this time. I was losing the battle. I had to do something before I was fully gone. I looked at Mike, the linked right outside the car. I got out, managing to stay on my feet somehow, then took the injection from Mike's hand. He opened his mouth and shrieked at me with its tentacles. He was furious that he couldn't hurt me. I started walking towards the apartment to end all of this. My entire body hurt. I was stretching. My mouth was burning and I was thirsty. The rain, now pouring like I've never seen before, hurt my skin. I felt the bones of my jaw loosen, almost melt. If I wanted to, I could open my mouth until my chin touched my neck, but I decided not to. I could feel the 3 disgusting tentacles forming in my throat. I could shriek if I wanted to, but I decided not to. I entered the building. There was green blood on the floors. Some linked were laying dead on the ground. No longer linked. Some were doing nothing. Not yet. They weren't ordered anything. One of them looked at me and recognized me as its own. I did too. I kept going up, and I saw a familiar face. The commander. He looked at me and recognized me as its own. Then he got confused and gave me a device. I was confused for a moment too, and I took the device. Then, I recognized him, and he recognized me too. I kept climbing the stairs. I was going up, to the Queen, unsure of why. I couldn't remember anymore. In front of the door was a gray cat. It looked at me, recognized me as one of its own, and got back inside, near the Queen. I climbed the last stair and looked inside. There were, as I could see and hear prior to this moment, many of us inside, all nested near the Queen, sleeping and awake. The Queen was sitting on a chair, slouching with her turned back. She recognized me and looked at me. She was the old lady from the metro. At first I wanted to kill myself, and other wanted me dead as well. All the linked wanted me dead. But then, I lost my sight and my hearing, only to gain it back in another way. At that point, I think I was fully one of them. I remember the times that I talked about my hearing and sight changing. Well, I believe them to be my body giving up the battle completely, and me becoming just like the imposters. And then, I was one of the imposters. It is quite difficult to explain the feeling. Firstly, there was a gap inside my head for the Queen to fill with a personal mission. Secondly, a concept of enemy was in my head, those not yet turned. I felt the strong urge to make everyone like me. Thirdly, I felt myself even more linked. I didn't only see the Queen, I also saw every single linked, and there were many of us, expanding. I could also recognize other linked as who they were, as individuals. I recognized the old cat lady, not only as the Queen, but also as the person she was. I recognized the commander and his men. I kept recognizing the people from work, except for some, people from the tennis club, and finally, Sarah. When I saw Sarah, something happened. The doctor I talked to laughed when I told him that Sarah saved me, but it is true. Seeing her made me remember. My body fought back one last time with everything it had, and I was back to being conscious. Yet the Queen didn't like it. It angrily jumped on me, making us fall down, and opened its mouth. The old lady, unlike all the other imposters, had 4 of those tentacles, and she grabbed my face with them. I could feel she was doing something to me, and I felt that death was only seconds away. Coincidentally, I felt the device I took from the commander on my left hand. I started pressing the device from all angles I could reach, with only the sensation of touch, while also feeling inhumane amounts of pain in my hand. Then, to my luck, the device worked, and every single creature in the room, including me and the Queen, was shrieking in pain. I took this opportunity to use the syringe the right way, but to my surprise, it was not in my right hand. I realized that I had dropped it when the lady jumped on me. With my left hand holding the device and giving me unexplainable amounts of pain, I searched desperately for the injection with my other hand. I tilted my head to the right to see where the injection was, but my well-formed tentacles shaking around in pain were keeping me from having clear vision. The moment I found the syringe was the moment the device went off. I quickly grabbed the syringe, and this time, as the old lady jumped back on me, I made sure I didn't let go of my grip. The pain on my face was back, and I was quickly losing consciousness. With my very last effort, I injected the syringe to her neck. She started shrieking in agony and rolling around. As everything was going dark, I remember hoping that it'd work. A while ago, I opened my eyes to see that I was in a hospital, owned by the company Pete works for. Sarah was there, waiting for me to open my eyes. God, I was so happy to see her. After a while, a doctor came and asked me what happened. I explained to him thoroughly. Then when he left, Commander came, thanked me for doing what I've done, promised to go out for a beer sometime, and left. Pete came too to check on me. He told me his part of the story, which was pretty exciting to be honest. Maybe I can convince him to tell his part one day. And I told him my part. He was quite surprised when I told him about the tall man I saw. He said that my description was the same as his boss, the guy who owns the company. After Pete left, I called the people I knew. Alice and Yusuf were okay, although they hadn't remembered anything that happened, just like Sarah, and had a sore throat, just like Sarah and I, and were sick. Others from work were also okay. Some weren't even sure why I called. But Tim, I couldn't reach him, and unfortunately, I can only assume the worst. So, this is it, I guess. You probably should stop worrying about your 10-year-olds and nephews. The situation seems to be over. Although there's this weird feeling I get when I look at the mirror. I think I may have gotten a little taller. Thank you for making it this far. I hope you enjoyed the video. I just wanted to quickly let you know about a couple things I have going on. I have an Instagram where I post more personal things about who I am. It isn't just all creepy stuff. You can find me at Stories After Midnight. I also have a Twitter where I mainly retweet and like things I find interesting. The handle for that is in the description, but it is S_A_midnight. I should really find another one because that's hard to say. If you really like what I'm doing, consider joining the Midnighters. That's my growing community, where we hang out and have fun and talk about cats. You can find a link to our Discord in the description below. We'd love to see you there. Other than that, it'd make me happier than a cat on a table full of antique glassware if you'd like the video and consider sticking around for more. We'll see you in the next one.